Cada día doy las gracias a esta vida. Cada día me nace nueva melodía. Yo sabía que algún día llegaría. Qué alegría pasar el tiempo a tu lado. Qué alegría por haberte encontrado. Soy feliz, siento que todo he ganado. Tengo tantas razones para quererte, cariño, tantas razones para quererte. Tengo tantas razones para quererte, cariño, tantas razones para quererte. Cada día le doy las gracias a esta vida. Cada día me nace nueva melodía. Yo sabía que algún día llegaría. Tengo tantas razones para quererte.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this experimental live stream onto LinkedIn and Facebook. So we're here today to talk about how to build a cyber secure supply chain. We'll be sharing some of our methodologies that we use when we're managing supply chain security on behalf of our clients. And also when we do a quick demo of the new platform we've just launched called CyberSwift at the end, which helps you automate and manage supply chain security. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or reach out to us directly via our page. We'll be delighted to share with you some more information about how CyberSwift works and how to manage security within your supply chain, how to identify risk and how to mitigate it. With no further ado, let's dive right in. So welcome to our webinar, How to Build a Cyber Secure Supply Chain, or Turning Awareness into Action. Now, over the past year, cybersecurity has shifted from being an IT concern to being one of the defining business risks for every organisation in the UK. The National Cybersecurity Centre's annual review for 2025, released just a few weeks ago, paints a clear picture. Cyber threats are increasing in scale, they're increasing in sophistication, and in their impact on the everyday operations of British businesses. We've seen major disruptions this year to retailers, to manufacturers, to logistics companies, even local councils, all caused by cyber incidents that didn't just hit one company, but they spread through their supply chain. The NCSC is calling this the new normal. Now, more than half of the incidents they investigated in the past year involved a supplier or a third party. Yet only 14% of UK businesses have reviewed the cyber risk of their suppliers in the last 12 months, which means 86% are still trusting their supply chain completely blind. It's a leap of faith. So if you're a procurement or a supply chain professional, that's a serious challenge, but it's also an opportunity because increasingly large organizations are setting clear expectations. Now, if you want to stay in our supply chain, you need to prove your cyber resilience. And this is why supply chain is the new focus. The government and the NCSC are now urging all large organisations, especially those in critical sectors and in public procurement, to promote the Cyber Essentials and the ISME Cyber Assurance standards across their supply networks. Now, this isn't about red tape, it's about trust. When one weak link can disrupt the entire supply chain. Yeah, buyers need confidence that everyone they rely on is meeting a recognized standard. So for suppliers, it's no longer optional. It's the new baseline for doing business. And if you're a buyer or a supply chain manager, you're under pressure to identify cyber risks across potentially hundreds or even thousands of suppliers. If you're a supplier, you're under pressure to demonstrate that you're someone who it's safe to do business with. And both sides are facing the same problem. It's a lack of visibility and a lack of capacity to manage that risk. Now, the NCSC review puts it very bluntly. They said, despite an increasing trend in supplier-based breaches, just 14% of UK businesses have reviewed the cyber risk of their immediate suppliers in the last 12 months. Now, this is often down to a lack of capacity, capability, and the tools within the buying organisations. So that's the gap we're here to close today. Because while everyone now understands that supply chain security really matters, very few organisations have practical or efficient ways to turn that awareness into action. Well, my name is Mark. I'm the founder and CEO of Cool Waters Cyber. We're an award-winning cybersecurity business. We're based in the UK. We serve clients globally, and we help firms secure their businesses through recognised cybersecurity certifications and secure their supply chains. And cybersecurity certifications, they apply to any industry. They're industry agnostic. But as a firm, the team that we have at Cool Waters, we have particular experience in some sectors, in construction, in tech startups, in education, finance, and medical tech and pharma. So we can bring some really practical experience over and above for those clients that we have in those particular sectors. Okay, so let's talk about how do you manage supply chain risk. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share our methodology that we use when we're managing supply chain risk and supplier due diligence on behalf of our customers. So feel free to make notes. I'm happy to share the slides with you afterwards if you want to ping me a message. So it starts off with our risk-based approach, and it's a simple 5-step process. First of all, we define some risk profiles. Yeah. High, medium, critical. Yeah, it ensures a means of categorizing suppliers' consistency. Then we go through and we look at our suppliers that we have. We assess their criticality. We ask how essential or replaceable are they. That allows us to focus and prioritize our efforts. And one of the ways we can do this is by analyzing spend. Yeah, it really speeds up prioritization. The suppliers you spend the most money with are probably your most important suppliers. And then we apply some tiered due diligence. We're matching our requirements against the risk level, so it's proportionate. And finally, you've got to monitor and you've got to reassess, because all of these certifications, they are annually renewable. So we've got to track those renewals, we've got to track the updates, we've got to understand how our use of that supplier is evolving over time. Are they becoming more or less critical? It allows us to keep our assurance current. Because things, when it comes to managing risk, one size does not fit all. So let's get practical. So we start off by defining what we call our risk profiles. And typically we'll say high, medium, low, and critical. But remember, this is just an example. You might have more or you might have fewer based on the needs of your business. And actually, once you start working through the process with a couple of suppliers, it soon becomes clear if you're going to need to adjust the process, you're going to need to adjust the number of categories to suit your unique situation. So these categories help you group suppliers according to the potential impact that they could have on your organization if something went wrong. So each profile describes not just how much risk exists, but what kind of risk it is. So as I said, we've got a simple 4-level scale in this example: low, medium, high, and critical. But they all have a very, very different meaning. So a low risk supplier is someone who can cause some inconvenience if something went wrong, but actually you'll just fix it and you'll move on. Yeah, someone who's bringing a medium risk means actually it could be a noticeable problem. It might even be embarrassing, but you can recover from it quite quickly. High risk means there's a real danger to your operations or to your reputation. It could cost you some serious money to fix it, or actually even cause some regulatory trouble. And then you've got critical risk, which is that kind of existential danger. It's the kind of failure that puts people's lives in danger, or the very existence of a business gets put at risk. So by defining these levels clearly, it means we can apply some proportionate due diligence. We're not over-engineering controls for low-impact suppliers. We're focusing our attention where the consequences truly matter. And in line with the NCSC's latest guidance, we also look at 3 core dimensions of supply risk. And this is data risk. So if a supplier is handling or storing or processing your data, even if they're processing on your behalf, accountability under UK law still stays with you. Okay, so that's one type of risk, one lens you can look with. Another one is operational risk. So this is where an outage or a cyber incident affecting that supplier would directly disrupt your day-to-day operations. So think kind of logistics suppliers, people providing essential daily deliveries of stock or parts. It might be an IT support or a cloud platform, or someone who you've outsourced a core business process to, like customer services, for example. If they're running your contact center on your behalf, that's an operational risk if they go down. And finally, we've got direct risk. This is where a compromise on that supply systems would give an attacker a direct route into your environment. So this might be an outsourced IT service provider. Yeah, we've seen that with Co-op, Marks and Sparks, Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah, they all use the same outsourced IT service provider. So if someone like that is managing your cybersecurity, or if you've got a software vendor who's got remote access in order to provide support, they represent a direct risk. So if they get compromised, they've already got keys to your kingdom, and that would allow the bad guys to walk straight in. So for each risk dimension, we can rate any given supplier against that risk profile: low, medium, or high, or critical. So just to use an example, you could have you start to build up a table, something like this. So for each of the different suppliers, is there data risk to high, medium, or low, operational risk, direct risk? And it starts to allow you to get a sense of which supplier is most important. And another way you can focus in on this as well is just really think about the operational risk as well, because that's, I think, where we're getting this understanding now across the industry that actually previously we were really focused on data risk, but actually operational risk is an even bigger risk for most organizations. So once we've identified the type of cyber risk a supplier introduces, the next question is, how critical are they to our business? And it's not just about how big the supplier is, it's about how much their failure could affect your operations, your customers, and your reputations. So to bring some structure to this, we use a 4-category criticality scale. Easy for you to say. That combines these 2 dimensions. One is the business impact. How badly would we be affected if that supplier failed? And 2 is market availability. How easy would it be to replace them if they did? And that then allows us to have a kind of very simple matrix like this. So you can identify your strategic suppliers are those people where the risk is high, but the value is high as well. They're providing a critical or a core service to your business. Maybe there's no alternatives. It might take a year to replace them because of the nature of the work that they do. So actually you understand that those guys present a really high level strategic risk. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, you might have commodity suppliers that provide ad hoc or one-off services that would have a negligible impact on your corporations, like the people who supply the sandwiches to your meetings, marketing people, short-term contractors. Easy to replace, easy to find lots of competitors. So again, we're getting this sense of scale, allows us to categorize our suppliers and know who we need to focus in on. And it helps us to prioritize where we're going to spend our energy. Your strategic and your tactical suppliers are the ones that can genuinely put your organization at risk if something goes wrong. That's where a deeper level of cyber assurance needs to focus. Your operational and your commodity suppliers, they still matter, but the due diligence can be proportionate. So we use this prioritization to sanity check that initial risk profile we assigned, especially around operational risk. If, for example, you might have had a supplier that you previously said was a medium operational risk, but having kind of completed the process, you increase that to high because you realize actually there's no viable alternative that we can use. If this company goes out of business, they're the only people for 300 miles who can do what they do. So actually, they're a bigger risk than we realized. So now you've got this means of describing the risk level associated with each supplier. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Because at the end of the day, this is the question we're asking ourselves. How can I reduce the risk of one of my suppliers having a cyber attack? Because if it does, that causes direct, operational, or a data risk to me. We want the suppliers to have good cybersecurity, but what does good cybersecurity look like? What's the definition of good? We don't want to waste time reinventing the wheel. So fortunately, the government has solved this for us. They did it over 10 years ago. And let me introduce you to our friend Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials is one example of a cyber certification, but it's an independent definition of good cybersecurity. And as with all things, there are levels to this, like Olympic medals, bronze, silver, and gold. And in the world of cybersecurity, Cyber Essentials is a bronze medal. The cyber certs range. You've got Cyber Essentials, like your entry level certificate, is your gateway drug, if you like. Then you have Cyber Essentials Plus, which is the audited version. Cyber Assurance, which brings in kind of more risk management, business continuity, GDPR compliance stuff. And then you've got the gold standard, which is ISO 27001. But what you can then do is that you can plug those different certifications into our risk levels, and it gives us a very simple matrix that we can understand that for any given risk profile of a supplier, this is the certification we need to ask for. Our low risk suppliers, we want to ask for Cyber Essentials. If they're a medium risk, we'll want the audited version, Cyber Essentials Plus. Maybe actually, if they're also processing a lot of our data, we're going to bump that up to a high. We're going to ask for Cyber Assurance or ISO 27001 because those standards include data protection clauses. Now, this is just one example of how this might work out. Each business or project has their unique situations. They'll come up with their own risk ratings here, and when we run this on behalf of our clients with our managed supply chain service, we run a workshop with the key stakeholders and we end up quantifying all of these and defining them all for you. So now we've got our risk profiles defined. It's time to start mapping our suppliers against them. So where do you start? Well, you probably intuitively know a couple of the absolute key suppliers for your business or your project. But otherwise, a very practical tip is just to use spend data as a proxy for importance. In most organizations, the top 20% of suppliers by spend probably account for 80% of operational dependency. Mr. Pareto turns up everywhere, doesn't he? So even before you've got a perfect risk model, start by looking at where does the money go. Those are the suppliers where you'll probably get the most impact and actually have the most leverage by asking them to invest in stronger cyber assurance. And now actually the slog starts because you've got your prioritized list of suppliers, started with critical and highs, and the ones that you spend the most money with. Then it's time to start engaging with those suppliers, asking them what certifications they have in place, tracking this in a bunch of spreadsheets where suppliers don't have the required cert. Then you're going to be telling them to go and get one, or maybe you're going to have to create a manual questionnaire so you can do your own due diligence on them. And once you've got all that information, all those surveys, those spreadsheets, those certificates or emails, you're going to have to start managing them. You're going to be chasing responses, checking expiry dates, verifying certifications, recording who's approved, who's not approved, and then repeating the whole thing every month to make sure that those expiring certifications are getting renewed. Now, if you've got a handful of suppliers, that might be manageable as a manual exercise. But if you've got dozens or hundreds, it becomes a full-time job. And often in many organizations, it's split across your procurement team, your compliance team, and actually your IT team, because you need some cyber nerds to help you understand some of the answers coming back from your suppliers. And because it's also manual, what happens? We tend to fall behind and the data quickly gets out of date. Or you could use a system like CyberSwift designed to simplify and manage the supply chain risk process. So if you'll indulge me for 5 minutes, let me just explain how CyberSwift makes life easier. So when you first log into the supplier portal, this is what you see. CyberSwift was developed by us at Coolwater Cyber, and it's our unique system for managing cyber certifications and supply chain security. And you'll see how these two things link together. So you start off, you've got a dashboard like this, and you can see the number of suppliers you've got, what your compliance level are, who's expiring, and allows you to dive in and see who's not compliant. You can also look at a detailed view and see all of your suppliers listed there, what their risk profile is, and whether or not they're compliant. So as a supply chain manager, you can look here and you see this data, and it's always up to date. No more spreadsheets full of stale data. And at the heart of CyberSwift is those risk profiles that we talked about. So you can see here is the definitions that they're unique to you as an organization. And working with us, we've said, okay, what are the required certifications that we're looking for against each of those suppliers? And you can have as many or as few risk profiles that make sense for you as a business, all completely customizable. So let me just give you a practical example. Imagine that you decided to work with Coolwater Cyber, and they're going to be a new supplier for you on a project. So you start off, you click on add a new supplier, and you type in a means of identifying that supplier, either their company registration number, it's probably the most accurate thing to do, or if you don't have that to hand, just look at their website. That's going to be unique to that organization. So you search for the supplier, and in this example, CyberSwift says, oh, I know all about Coolwater Cyber, they're already there. So you can just click through and say, yeah, that is the person I'm really talking about. Please make them a supplier, add them to my supply chain. And the details are already there. Basic company information is all public domain, including the certifications that they hold. So if a supplier is already used by CyberSwift, if they've uploaded their own details or another organization has already added them, you don't need to duplicate that work. Yeah, we add the supplier, we can see their record, and we can see here that they've already got a number of valid certifications. All I need to now do is assign the unique risk profile for my organization. Yeah, we say that they're a medium risk. We've done that work. And actually, we can see that they've already got the required certifications that they need. They've already been validated by the team at CyberSwift. My work here is done. That supplier is fully onboarded. I don't need to talk to them. Haven't had to ask them to fill out a questionnaire. I haven't asked them to send me anything. Job is done. Nice and easy. What about a brand new supplier who's never used CyberSwift? What does that journey look like? Well, let's add this fictitious company, Anchor Environmental. Let's add them into CyberSwift. The system says, well, I've never heard of them. Would you like to create a new supplier? So that's what we do. We put their details in, we click on create supplier, and we assign them a risk profile. And the system says, oh, okay, well, you've said that a low risk supplier needs to have Cyber Essentials. Okay. So what happens next is completely up to you. Either CyberSwift can email that supplier on your behalf, automatically invites them to log in, set up an account, or you might want to engage with them outside. Yeah, you might want to engage that supplier directly for that initial conversation. So whatever your business process is, CyberSwift can accommodate it. If you go down the automatic route, CyberSwift will send out an email to the supplier. It'll look something like this. So it just says, dear supplier, dear value partner. And this one is coming from Coolwater Cyber, but it would have your name on there as an organization. Blogs Builders is inviting Tommy's drywall company to participate in their supply chain compliance program. Yeah, and it just kind of guides you through what they need to do. The supplier can create an account. If they've already got the required certifications, they just upload it. And when they do, it gets reviewed by one of the cyber experts at Coolwater. We check the certificate, we make sure it's valid, we make sure it's correct for that organization. If it is, we will mark it as verified. You'll see that turn live within a day in your dashboard, or we'll reject it and explain why. It's not not the right scope, not the right organization, whatever it is. And if the supplier does not have the required certifications, if they haven't got Cyber Essentials, haven't got Cyber Assurance, whatever, they can actually just continue to click through the system that CyberSwift presents to them, and they've got the option right there to start the process. And this is the other half of CyberSwift that we use for all of our certification customers. And CyberSwift is this expert system that really simplifies the process of becoming Cyber Essentials, Cyber Assurance certified. So it guides even the least technical person through it step by step. It's what makes CyberSwift, Cyber Essentials fast and easy. The customer can see where they stand. It's easy to track their progress. It supplies all the policies and the procedures and the templates that they need in order to be able to comply with the standard. It's even got model answers in there that they can use if they're following it. It's got all the required training is bundled in there as well. So it really is this kind of one-stop shop. So if you've got kind of suppliers who are not particularly technical, but there's a high operational risk or there's a data risk because you've got to give them sort of blueprints of a military base where they've got to do some painting for you or something like that, it'll kind of guide them through without you needing to put lots of time and effort into it. And once the suppliers completed their certification in CyberSwift, then it automatically updates their certification status to say that they now have Cyber Essentials, they now have Cyber Assurance, and that just ripples instantly across all the different supply chain dashboards of people who are working with that supplier. And if you don't want to get involved in the detail of the process, then you've got the option for Coolwater Cyber to take the whole process on for you. This is our managed supply chain service. We engage with the suppliers for you. We train them. We get their certs uploaded. We guide them through the certification process from beginning to end. All you've got to do is log in to your dashboard and watch those numbers magically improving themselves every day. And what we're also seeing actually with some larger projects and strategic organizations, they're choosing to invest and seed cyber resilience into their supply chain. And they're doing this by subsidizing or even completely paying for their suppliers' certifications through the CyberSwift platform. So if you're struggling as a supply chain manager, if you're struggling to build out enough compliant suppliers within a certain trade or a certain sector in order to allow you to deliver a project that you're on the hook to deliver, then that's another option we can provide through the managed supply chain service. We can actually go out and do all this at no cost to your supplier. We're kind of doing it on their behalf. So the CyberSwift supply chain portal, it allows you to manage or outsource cyber due diligence, which actually is one of those things. It is an admin heavy task, but it's also quite a technical task. So it can be hard to find the right skills within your organization to want to do that. People who got into cybersecurity because they like doing technical stuff tend not to like doing admin and spreadsheets. So often your cyber and IT teams are really happy to have someone take this admin off of their plate. Cybersecurity gives you this always up-to-date, real-time view of where risk is sitting in your supply chain. And you see some really big efficiency gains because of this shared supplier database. Once a supplier is certified with any of their customers, anyone else who's working with that supplier gets to see that instantly. I mean, this information is all public. What certification someone has, the company information, it's all public domain anyway. All we're doing is organizing it and making it more efficient to use. So that's the process we follow. That's how CyberSwift automates it. Any questions? Well, I hope you found that interesting and educational. Maybe it sparks some ideas and some thoughts. Feel free to get in touch. Either pop some comments, send us a direct message on the platform where you're watching this, or reach out to us online. Our main company website is cool-waters.co.uk, or you can look at the microsite designed for CyberSwift, which is cyberswift, all one word, .app. That's cyberswift.app or cool-waters.co.uk. Look, we'd be delighted to give you half an hour of our time just to talk through what managing supply chain security might look like in your organization, and how we could help, or how you might just be able to take what we've been sharing in this webinar and just apply it for yourselves. If you want a copy of the slides, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to send you an email of the PowerPoint. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that interesting, and bye for now.